The problem in Israel-Palestine is you're talking about a tiny sliver of land. For the Israelis, they've had a history of being invaded from the north, from Syria. You've had invasions by Egypt in the 67 war, the 48 war, the 73 war. So they don't have what they call strategic depth, right? They can't retreat and then regroup and do a counter push. So they need to have defensive that are very strong at their frontier. And because of that, they can't really give away land. A lot of the discussion has been about the two-state solution, which, I personally think would be good, but I don't see it happening because if the Israelis give up Gaza and the West Bank, they will basically have borders that are inside their country because of the way it's shaped, right? So I think if any attack does come in the future, they got nowhere to retreat. So it's very hard to defend that land.
Cash.
Ladies and gentlemen, group chat.
Cash.
It's $1 trillion. Hot.
No intro. Let's get into it.
So a lot has happened since the last episode. I think, more information has come out on kind of the attacks on Israel. And I think there's a couple really challenging things that are happening in just the media and social media and then in real life. They're three different things in my opinion. I think everyone is engaged in the discussion, which is a good thing. People are actually paying attention to what's happening there, which I think is incredibly important because it is very serious what's happening there. I think, whether we like it or not, X and Twitter has become a place where everything is shared in terms of information, images, videos, and, they continue to be horrific, right? Seeing what's happening and seeing the suffering that's happening. The thing that I think that is challenging, that it is forcing everyone to jump into the discussion and pick a side. And I think that's causing more problems. And, there's something that happened in the last couple of days, which I was really surprised. So there was pro-Palestine marches all over the world.
Yeah.
And the problem with a pro-Palestine march is that it assumes that you are pro-Hamas.
Mm-hmm.
And I think you have to understand that there's a humongous difference between those two things in order for people to even have empathy toward your situation. And I think, the knee-jerk reaction from a lot of Muslim friends of mine has been, hey, well, you don't know what's been happening in Palestine for so long. So the challenge is when you look deeper, you would see that in Palestine, there are many people that are not pro-Hamas. I think the leader of the PLO is anti-Hamas. And so they are a terrorist organization. They are not the Palestinian state. And so those are two different things. And I think there was a lot of people that went and supported pro-Palestine. And now it's become there's people on social media just who have nothing to do with the situation saying they're pro-Hamas.
Yeah.
You don't even understand what's going on, and you just involve
yourself. 21-year-old, white college girls, I see all over TikTok.
Yeah. And what I don't understand about it is and I think what happened at Harvard the last 48 hours is pretty fascinating. So Larry Summers, who I think used to be the dean of Harvard, basically sent a tweet out saying, I'm very disappointed on how the Harvard administration handled the post attack, how they've messaged to the Harvard community. And it turns out that a bunch of students that ran a bunch of student organizations signed a statement very much pro-Palestine that can be interpreted as pro-Hamas. And it turned into an enormous amount of people, very important people, including Bill Ackman and many founders, Michael Brukim from FabFitFun, basically said well, this is completely crazy. And Bill Ackman turned into, well, you got to release the names of the students. and someone released the name of the students, and that happened last night. And, half the kids have backtracked and said, didn't realize what I signed. And, this is the freedom of speech argument that people are having. And what everyone said is like, freedom of speech, yes. And we've said this 100 times on this podcast. Freedom of consequences, no.
Mm-hmm.
Like, there are consequences for your words. You could say whatever you want. No one's going to arrest you, but there are consequences. And so these people who chose to speak like that now are faced with consequences. And I think if you are like, you don't have a dog in this fight, I think you just have to be empathetic to the people that are dealing with this. And you don't need to give your opinion on everything. Like, you could just be supportive on the innocent people that have died in this conflict, like reading about the babies and the women being raped and things like that. Like, have empathy towards that situation and kind of shut the fuck up. Like, you don't need to be vocal on everything. And I think what's interesting is I saw a lot of people calling on celebrities to post.
Yeah.
I don't think that's right either. Like, I don't think celebrities need to be involved in everything either. Every time celebrities talk, all the talking heads say, shut up and dribble. It's like, like during election season, you're an athlete, shut up. You're a celeb. No one cares what you think.
Yeah.
Do we really care what Taylor Swift has to say on this matter?
It's
I don't think she's
Ja Rule thing, right? What does Ja Rule think at a time like this that Dave Chappelle made famous?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I think, exactly. And I think that's really where, like, I'm kind of disappointed in the way people are engaging with this, because it's at a very important time in our history. And I think it's important that you take the time to read and learn. Like, I've read so many interesting perspectives over the last 3 days, and I've learned a lot about the region. It's a place that may never solve this problem. Like, I would say it's probably never going to happen.
Right. It's been 5,000 years.
Yes.
And the assumption would be we have no end in sight, at least in our lifetime.
Yeah. And I think and then, like, to add,
So just to get back to the Harvard thing and Bill Ackman, so he called for the names to be released, but then he even went further that we need to make sure they don't get jobs. So there's a whole moral case. You have one of the most important business people in the country saying that these people who sign these different letters, and you can have your moral case on either side. I'm not making a judgment. That's an interesting play. Yeah. To do that for when you're that big and important in business.
Yeah, I think he went a route of fuck around and find out. Mm-hmm. I think the problem is the side, like on the Israeli side, if you talk to people...
Because it also comes back to your original point, Hamas and Palestine are two different things, but it's not being treated as such.
Well, because these people have chosen, like, the approach was like, from people marching in the streets, is like, you got what's coming to you. Let me tell you, that is the dumbest fucking thing I've ever heard.
Yeah, no, of course.
Do innocent people deserve that? No, they
of course
don't.
not.
And that is why it's not effective. And this is why there's consequences, because it's out of anger and rage and not out of, like, empathy for what happened in that situation.
Yeah.
That situation, innocent people died.
Mm-hmm.
And that is all we should be talking about at that second. Once you have a time to show that empathy for that situation, and you see it now, there's Iranians in the streets protesting with Israelis.
Yeah, of course.
So we know that is possible, but right now the knee jerk is very much rage.
Yeah.
And I think that we're finding, like, it's not going to work. It's not going to work if you're pro-Palestine. Yeah. Absolutely not. And I think the challenge now is the unfortunate is, like, what is the end result here? Homie was on TV today saying it's Jihadi Friday.
Like, who said this?
That is wild.
The leader of Hamas.
Hamas. There's a video. It's being posted all over the internet saying this Friday we must, seek harm on the West.
Yeah.
All around the world.
All around the world. I mean, think about how everyone feels all over the world now.
True. But that might also be some desperation, right? He's trying to get support because he sees that Hamas might have overplayed their hand and there's a huge backlash against them. Yeah. So now he's grasping at straws and he's trying to figure out something to do. Because I think if you look at it just from a rational point of view, this has set Hamas back probably it's a death blow. They're probably gone after this.
Yeah.
Whatever sympathy they had, people are cutting off aid. Everything is now turning against them.
Yeah.
Their only friends left are Iran. And even Iran sort of is now stepping back and saying, look, we support, but we didn't plan this.
Yeah.
Right. Normally they'd be like, yeah, we did this. We're powerful. Don't mess with us. And now they're even like, wait a minute.
Yeah. By the way, the new voice on the pod, because we don't have an intro. We don't. I totally forgot. Normally we would introduce who we have as on the guest. So we have Nabil on here, who's actually was living in Qatar till recently.
Yep.
And now lives in Los Angeles, and DM'd me. I think after the Sunday pod, because he wanted to just educate us on the U.S. Middle East relationships and how all that dynamic works. And I think it's an important thing to discuss, because I think the wrong thing to do. And what's interesting is like, if you talk to people in Israel, they appreciate the nuances of the relationship way better than Americans do. Americans just do not understand what's going on, right? And even I talked to two friends who live in Israel. Like, they have empathy. They're not just like, go fucking kill everyone. Like, they're not like that.
Yeah.
That's not how they think. They really do. They're just like, why did this happen to us? And Hamas is a bad group of people. They never said Palestinians are a bad group of people. They know they coexist with Arabs. They coexist, and they found ways to work together. But like, this history is so never ending. And unfortunately, like, an essay I was reading is that like, what happens from this is new factions are going to form, new extremists are going to be born that are going to knee-jerk reaction to what happened. And so it's incredibly sad, the whole thing. And it's sad that it doesn't look like it can be resolved ever.
Yeah, like Al-Qaeda went off the map and ISIS came up.
Yeah. And so I think that part is really, really tough. So
and Nabil, give a little bit more of an intro of yourself, of how, from your perspective, how you join the group here, just for the listener, because I want them
what's
to
your
know.
background? Yeah.
So I'm from Canada, lived all over the world, but in the Middle East, I've lived in Libya and in Qatar twice, and was put onto the podcast by my buddy Adam. Shout out to Adam. And I've been listening to the show for a while, and so like you said, in December, I left Qatar after working there, and I was working at a company in the local portfolio of the Qatar Investment Authority, the Sovereign Wealth Fund. And now I'm in the startup game out here in LA. And that's sort of how we got connected.
Yeah. So I think what prompted him to message me was our discussion from Sunday night around, how does Qatar play with, when you think about Hamas and Iran and all of these places, because there are some of these leaders of these organizations based out of Qatar and Dubai and these places. And so the discussion was like, do these people know what's going on? Are they involved? Are they complicit? What is their involvement? And you kind of had a lot of interesting facts about like US's relationship with a lot of these countries.
Right. So, I mean, some history, because not a lot of people know about Qatar, except for now with the World Cup, but it's a tiny country, ridiculously wealthy, with a small population in a very rough neighborhood. So now if you're a tiny country and you've got all these massive countries around there and you've got all this money, you got to figure out a way to survive and protect yourself. So the strategy Qatar has been using has been to make friends with bigger countries. So their whole approach is, we're friends with everybody. So they're also positioning themselves as the person you go to for a diplomatic negotiation. So you'll see, for example, the resolution for the Taliban, the US, all those discussions were done in Qatar. Now, I'm sure, I don't know if it's going to happen, but pretty much any of these negotiations are going to happen with these hostages. I'm for sure it's going to be done through Qatar, because they're the ones who are friends with everybody. So they're friends with the US and they're friends with Hamas and Israel. Not Israel, sorry, Iran. Now, the relationship with Iran has an economic component. So Qatar basically gets most of its money from natural gas. And they have this massive field that's in the north of the country, but it's shared with Iran. Now, they cannot antagonize Iran to the point that they will just basically go and take out their facilities. So they need to maintain some kind of friendly relationship. And the idea and what people have said is basically Qatar is paying off Iran not to develop the field on their side as a way of them capturing most of the economic value. So also there's a familial ties in Qatar. So it's Arabs mixed with families that are originally Iranian. So in their neighborhood, basically, they've got to be friends with everyone. And this is where a lot of the issues come when it comes to Hamas, because a lot of the leadership from the political wing actually resided in Qatar. Qatar was supporting the people in Gaza Strip with financial support. I mean, the telecoms firms are out there because, Israel didn't want to deal with it when they withdrew in 2005. They're like, hands off. We don't want to deal with this mess anymore. And Qatar said, okay, but there's, 2 million people. Somebody's got to do something. So they're basically paying aid. The Europeans are putting in aid, but they're sort of positioning themselves like that. And, a couple of years ago, I'm not sure if you remember, there was a blockade by Saudi.
That's my question was going to be, when did it switch from them being ostracized in the Middle East to being friends with everyone?
Basically.
So explain that whole situation.
So that basically has its roots, let's say 95, I think. So basically, when we first moved there, a couple months or a year, I can't remember, there was a coup, and the emir that was running the country was kicked out by his son. His son basically said, fuck off, don't come back. And because the idea was his father wasn't really developing the country. He was keeping all the money for himself. So he was in Europe on vacation or for some medical thing. And the kid said, see you later, don't come back.
Wow.
So the problem with that was that guy was aligned with the Saudis and the Egyptians. He was like really close with them. And then his son sort of said, okay, we got to get out of the shadow of Saudi Arabia. And he took Qatar down a different path. And he started Al Jazeera, which really pissed off the Saudis and everyone. It's like, all right, why are you airing our dirty laundry?
The news network. Wow.
So that really pissed him off. So then basically the emir at that time invited the Americans and said, look, you're having shit in Saudi. People are pissed at you. I've built this brand new massive military base. Why don't you guys come and chill here? So that protects Qatar because now you've got, 20, 30,000 American troops, the Americans' biggest base outside the US in Qatar. So he's like, all right, now I'm protected.
Wow.
Then they said, okay, let's go down our own route because the Saudis couldn't really affect Qatar in terms of the oil price anymore because they're getting the money from natural gas. Militarily, the U.S. is protecting them. And then they basically saw this movement start to develop of the, let's say, political Islam. So they thought this was the future. When the Arab Spring kicked off, that was sort of the culmination. They're like, okay, this is the wave of the future. These monarchies are going to be toppled. We want to be on the right side of history. So they were giving a lot of air to the Muslim Brotherhood in Egypt, which really pissed off the Saudis and the other monarchies because they're like, fuck, these guys are coming for us next. What are you doing?
Yeah.
And that rift really got bad. In 2014, they promised all the other countries, like, okay, we're not going to support the political factions of Islam. And some side information, Muslim Brotherhood and Hamas are related. They have the same philosophical ideas of using political means of getting power through voting and through democracy, but using religion as sort of the driving philosophy. Of course, once they come to power, they're like, all right, no more elections. We're in charge.
Yeah.
And so this is, anathema to Saudi, to UAE, to Bahrain. And what happened in Egypt really scared them. And they saw the Obama administration was supporting the uprisings during the Arab Spring. So Qatar sort of felt secure. Trump comes into power. Their backing with the U.S. is gone. Trump shows up in Saudi. That was his first country he visited, did the sword dance, touched the orb.
Yeah.
Next, a few weeks later, all of a sudden there's a blockade announced. So I was living in Qatar when the blockade happened. And it was interesting how it started. There was a hack of the official news channel saying that the emir of Qatar had said all this stuff about Iran being a major, player in the region. And they should be the, brought into the fold almost, something like that. And that sort of made the excuse of the blockade. And I think at that time, and a lot of reporting has come out that Saudi, UAE, and these guys actually wanted to invade and topple the emir and put in their own guy.
Wow.
But the Americans, they sort of stopped it. At that time, you had Rex Tillerson as the Secretary of State.
Yeah.
And he knew the Qataris from his days at Exxon. And he was like, told the UAE and Saudi, yo, you can't do this. Erdogan also threw in his support, flew troops in, and they started protecting Qatar.
That's the Turkey leader.
Yeah.
So
And
here, a quick question. Don't mean to interrupt.
Mhm.
What did Trump's visit to Saudi make the next step, the blockade and cutting Qatar out from the Middle East?
so I think Trump, because he's a construction guy, it's all about outsourcing. He doesn't want to get involved. I think they said to him, here's $300 billion in weapons we'll buy. Let us run the Middle East. And he's like, you know what? Outsource it. I don't want to give it. I don't care.
No, because I remember you couldn't even fly to Qatar from Dubai, from Saudi.
It used to take me 8 hours, and it used to be a half an hour flight.
Yeah.
It is a drive.
No, I had to fly to Oman, neutral
my
country,
God.
change planes, and then fly into Dubai.
Oh my God.
So I think, it was Trump was sort of like, you know what, I don't give a shit about this. Like, whatever, Saudi, take care of it.
Yeah.
And Saudis basically said, we'll buy 300 billion. Remember, he showed up with a placard and he started saying all that. So I think that was a driver. I mean, the day that the blockade happened or the day after, Trump went out in the White House and said all this stuff, they're supporting terror, blah, blah, blah. And then you had the Secretary of State say, no, we're like allies with Qatar. What are you doing? And then you had General Mattis, a Marine general, saying, no, we're our Secretary of Defense at the time. And he said, we got a huge base there. What are you talking about? We can't have you guys invading.
It sounds exactly par for the course with Trump.
Yeah.
But another interesting fact is the reason that Erdogan got involved is because Erdogan came to power through democracy and whatnot. And his AK party is related to the Muslim Brotherhood. They have that same sort of mindset of, okay, we use religion as a guiding philosophy, and then we come to power through elections and all that. So there is that relationship. Now, Hamas has become the extreme wing of that. So think if you had the Republican Party, these are like the
QAnon.
Yeah, basically.
Yeah.
And then you have more in the centrist, let's say, is Turkey. I mean, centrist for the Middle East, not internationally, right? So it's definitely skewed. But yeah, as soon as Trump was on the way out after the last election, all of a sudden, lo and behold, Qatar is friendly again with everyone.
So is your view that Hamas is gone? They're toast.
Yeah, I think they overplayed their hand.
Yeah.
Wait, did they wait for Biden to come in to open up the blockade?
Yep.
Oh,
it basically happened like right afterwards. There was an attempt for negotiation and all that, and all of a sudden, as soon as Trump was out, boom. Now the question is, I mean, I personally think that the Biden guy is not going to win unless they run somebody else. What's going to happen next? And might UAE and Saudi use this as an excuse to do something against Qatar again? Who knows? But it could have happened.
And so I guess the big thing is that, like, when months ago Israel was talking about a treaty with Saudi Arabia, which I thought was like, 10 years ago to think that's even possible sounded insane.
Yep.
And it sounded like things were progressing.
Yep.
And it sounded like it sounds like 99% of people have the path of, is it 99 or is it less than that?
It's hard to gauge, right?
Yeah.
I mean, getting that type of information is hard, but I mean, I've read that in Gaza, apparently 60% of the people support Hamas, which, I mean, that doesn't make any sense to me, but this is what I read.
Yeah.
So what is the view of the government in Saudi and what is the view of the actual people? This is hard to gauge.
Yeah. And so when you look at like there was this incredible opportunity to create like an alliance there which it sounded like Israelis particularly were very excited about.
Yep.
Especially UAE started it.
Yep. They were the first.
They had the UAE-Israeli alliance,
Yes.
which was a very progressive thing that happened in that region.
Yes.
Because it was unimaginable.
And then you had this like pretty pivotal moment in the last kind of, call it 18 months, where the Middle East, and we've said it on the podcast, from a cultural standpoint became like one of the hottest places on earth.
In terms of soft power, they started, I think it was like the World Cup, and then it's just been on a roll since then.
Yeah. And so now we're here.
Yeah.
It feels like a pretty big setback.
Oh yeah. I think the Saudis have officially said like, negotiations are off publicly. I mean, maybe in the back end they're doing it because the reason that they want to do this deal with Israel is, one is they're scared of Iran. Right?
Yeah.
Iran. I mean, there was a lot of hoopla about the Chinese
What's the
deal.
line? The enemy of my enemy is my best friend.
Yeah.
But I mean, they've always sort of been friends. I mean, even going back to the Russian invasion of Afghanistan, the Israelis were helping the Mujahideen as well, but it was all under the table because politically in the Middle East, it's very hard to say you're friends with Israel. I mean, because I think there's been such repressive governments where the only thing that you can not be prosecuted for in terms of political views is religion. And this is where I think a lot of problems form, where if you don't agree with the government, the only guys that you can really sort of make deals with are the religious guys. And then you're marrying politics and religion, which,
we know doesn't work.
No, it's always turns out to be bad. So I think, that deal is dead in the water unless the situation in Israel escalates. If Hezbollah from Lebanon starts doing stuff, then the Saudis might be like, okay, this is getting crazy. We need to protect our interests. Israel, let's figure something out on the down low. But publicly, I don't see it happening.
And I guess from your view, from the lens of like cultural impact, what's crazy is so I talked to two different people. One of our friends, he was talking about like is Israeli, and he felt that the environment felt like there could be another Holocaust. Like that's how badly he felt. I talked to a Muslim friend of mine who said like this feels exactly like post 9/11. And so those are two pretty big feelings that two different people I know have. And if that's how people are feeling, then when you think about what was happening in the Middle East in terms of like a cultural revolution, where it became in vogue to do business with Saudi Arabia and Qatar and all these regions, you did your concert, you know, they invested in your company and your funds. If you're being objective, obviously you may have biases because you work there and you know the good work they've done, but like, do you think like, is that a wrap?
Depends what J Pow does.
Really?
As long as interest rates are high, money is needed, right? And that's the source these days.
Yeah.
So I think,
but I think obviously from a business to business.
I'm saying finance, that's fine. I'm talking about cultural.
Yeah, culturals and business to business, finance never stopping.
Yeah. That always happens. It could just be done quieter. Yeah. That's all. But cultural. Like cultural, like.
So for example, Saudi Arabia's not currently, but in the past 2 years has thrown music festivals. There's plans to bring every A-list celebrity there, every artist to perform. And the whole region has.
Yeah. Yep.
And everyone's gone and got their check because they pay 3x what you make here.
True. I think it's definitely going to have an impact because there isn't that nuanced point of view yet, I think, around the world where people think the Middle East and they think, you know, everybody's sort of, you know, in the same boat. But geographically, it's quite far away what's happening in Israel and Palestine versus where Saudi and Qatar and Dubai are. But I think, you know, it's just, it doesn't help, right? It's not like it's boosting the marketing. It's actually, I think, holding it back in terms of like, all right, things are a bit iffy, could get worse. Maybe let me skip out, you know, Middle East this year and I'll go next year and see how it is. But I think from the sports point of view, I think that's going to still work because I think nobody's canceling games and stuff like that. So I think, you know, the whole investment and strategy around sports investments, that's going to keep.
I think it will work in that region. I think the investments made in America, I think will be faced with backlash, and a lot of very important people are going to make some really tough decisions because like it's going to have like, you know, the next big golf tournament or the next, you know, whatever. If I'm sure all those Saudi teams are doing exhibition matches in America, right? Like they're going to parade around Ronaldo and Neymar and all those people or whoever. Right. And so like, it's going to be like, I'm just curious to see how like, particularly Americans react. Cause right now we are very emotional on this topic. So I'm just, you know.
So I would say Dubai, cause I have tons of friends that live there. What's unique? So Dubai's entire economy is tourism.
Yeah.
Right? It's expats coming in, going to the fancy restaurants, staying at the fancy hotels.
It's a vacation spot.
And money laundering.
And money laundering. And they welcome all too. Yep. They're friends with everyone.
Yep. That's their whole approach.
So I was talking to a good friend that lives there. It was basically like Western tourism really doesn't affect Dubai, and it's unique because of the instability in the world. So in the last years, when did the Russian conflict? January? So not even
February
a year.
24th.
Okay, so it's been like
my daughter's birthday, so that's why I remember.
Okay, so it's like 10 months. He said there's 4 million people in Dubai.
Oh, yeah, Dubai's on fire right now.
And 1 million new visas were granted to Russians.
Yeah.
And he said the entire Dubai right now is Chinese people who are fleeing because they don't want to get arrested or their money held, and Russians.
So I don't think it affects the business, but my point is not, I'm more talking about the American relationship, but I'm not even talking about tourism. I'm talking about America, like the Middle East had broke into America. They had never been able to do that. Like people were like accepting of the Middle East impact on America culturally. That we had never seen before. That is worth trillions of dollars. Like that cultural impact. Because it's what MBS was talking about from sports washing and, you know, getting there. Like, how does that like, can someone in the Middle East own an NFL team now?
Yeah, because it's actually an interesting point because with how much these franchise values are going, NBA, NFL, there's been lots of talks to easing the restrictions of sovereign funds taking a stake.
Yeah.
Because if Vegas and Seattle come online for NBA, that's 11 billion between the two, likely, given where franchise values are. How many people in the Western world?
Oh, it's private equity could do it.
They've already released but like how many private equity companies want to be in the sports business?
Yeah.
There's like a couple, Redbird, a few others, but like, I don't know if Carlisle does.
Yeah. Well, that's my point is that like, it's so sad what happened to all the people that dealt with like just horrific kind of experience. And then it's also nowhere near the same level, but it's sad because I think it set like culturally the region back pretty badly.
Yeah, because even selfishly for the existing owners of all these teams, if they want to sell, your value is significantly higher if you have $5 trillion sovereign funds in the bidding race.
Yeah.
And to your question, I don't know. Will they be allowed to be in the bidding race?
Yeah, I mean, I think from a pure like
32 owners in the NFL do, the 30 owners in the NBA do.
Yeah.
But can they deal with the public
backlash? Yeah. I think right. I mean, obviously right now nothing's going to happen, but I'm just thinking more forward of like how just because here's the thing that is making the entire and I think you and Drama both said this in our chat, like that social media is very dark right now. So I haven't, except for a little bit of Twitter, I haven't spent much time on social media the last couple of days, but I have heard, and what's interesting is my kid's school and basically every school now is sending out notices that we recommend all of your children stay away from social media.
Yeah, I got that.
And I think every school around the country, around the world is saying, stay away from Instagram, stay away from TikTok, stay away from Twitter.
Do not go on TikTok if you're worried about your mental health.
Yeah.
But I think that's always been the
I
case.
actually texted Drama because I know you don't really go as much as we do.
Yeah.
And I spent a ton of time on there and I was like, what's your algo like right now?
Yeah.
And
what's
then
funny
he
is
was
mine
like,
started out so good. Mine was like, things you need to know about the conflict. Let's go over the history of the conflict. And then literally it just, after an hour, it was like, death to everyone. It just turned crazy so quick.
Yeah, stay away from TikTok.
Yeah. I mean, what is your thoughts on how the bigger players are going to be exploiting this? Because the way I look at it, China is loving this, right? This
China
is a
loves
distraction.
it. Russia loves it.
So maybe they're telling their algorithms on Twitter, ramp up the tensions, get people pissed off at each other.
It makes sense because, look, we know the algorithm's controlled by China despite what anyone wants to believe. And China, Russia, Iran, North Korea, they all want to create their own little bastion of like, terrible empires.
Loonies, the loony bins.
And look, every dictator like Xi, Putin, Kim Jong-un, they have two interests, right? Stay in power and don't get killed in a coup. Yep. That's number one. And number two is how do you pillage the country for as much money as possible?
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
Those are two requirements.
Yeah.
2 easy KPIs.
Yeah. Just be like, all right, how much should I pillage this year?
And wait, is my cousin trying to kill me?
Yeah. Definitely.
Do you think, can I ask a question? Like, do you think, and I know this is just your opinion, or maybe you have some information on this, but like, I think the perception is a little bit, or maybe what we sort of alluded to on the last episode was that maybe Qatar or maybe, certain Middle Eastern big dogs, we're going to get a bad rap for this. Maybe they're bummed about it. Maybe Hamas went rogue. Maybe they're like, yo, what the fuck are you doing? You guys went way too far. Maybe whatever. I didn't even think at that time about how pumped China and Russia are. I mean, they're probably just over the moon. But how do you perceive the relationship between, let's say, Qatar and Hamas? Like, do you think that they were like, what the fuck? We were making progress and then you guys went off the deep end. Do you think they're secretly kind of pumped? Do you think, like, what would your guess be?
No, I don't think they're pumped because Qatar, especially, you're talking about the locals and the expats. I mean, what brings talent and people to the country is stability.
Stability, right? Yeah.
They don't want instability. They want people to come and help develop the country because one of the interesting things about Qatar is the small size of the population. There's only like 350,000 people.
Oh my God.
So working age, you're talking about like 60,000 people. That's not even a corporation.
Yeah.
So they need labor, and it's basically 95% expats. If shit goes off, they're going to flee.
Yeah.
And this is what the Houthis were trying to do in the Yemen war. They were starting to target UAE and Dubai, and there was videos of the Patriot missiles going off in Abu Dhabi, because they know one thing goes wrong, that whole illusion, or the stability basically becomes illusion, is shattered, and everyone's going back to where they came from. And we have a parallel when the Gulf War happened the first time in Kuwait. As soon as Saddam invaded, it took so long for people to be willing to move back to the Middle East, to the point that oil companies for engineers would have massive bonuses just to get people there. I can't remember what the name it was. It was like Western Allowance or something like that. So anything that makes the region look unstable, they don't like it. You know, I'm sure there's a way you can map the actual impact on GDP, but there definitely is.
Yeah.
So you would, like, we were
Dubai-
joking on the last episode about, like, MBS is probably pissed. Like,
Oh, yeah.
is that what you would assume too? That
Yeah.
they want stability, they want peace. They don't. This is bad for business,
Mhm.
and Hamas seems to have sort of went rogue a little bit and went
Oh,
too
yeah.
far.
I mean, in the short term, they might get a boost in terms of oil price, but Qatar's on gas. They don't care about the oil price that much. Dubai is just all business, and their whole value proposition is, in the world of chaos, come here, no questions asked, and there's stability here. And it's interesting because, I mean, their whole model is whatever money you have, we don't ask any questions, just bring it here, and we can launder it through building apartment buildings and all this stuff. So you can see how much money that was actually like wasted in Afghanistan has ended up in Dubai. There's a direct track from all the taxpayer money that the US put in. I mean, they're saying what? It's in the trillions, right? It's more
Yeah.
than what was spent rebuilding Germany and Japan after World War II.
Yeah.
Afghanistan's still a mess, right?
Yeah.
All that money went to Dubai.
Yeah, it's a sad joke from my friends in Dubai. They say, yeah, once you get cooed, you go to the fanciest part of Dubai and you get your parachute. They unleash you, pre-negotiate your deal of how much money you get to keep of the stolen money, and you go off to Dubai.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a buddy of mine saw. There's this famous car dealership there called Alain Motors that has just the wildest cars in the world. And my buddy Shaheen was there, and he saw some African dude, suitcase with gold bars, straight up like walking around trying to buy a pajama.
Yeah, I mean, Dubai loves the instability. Means people who've stolen money need a place to be.
Yeah.
And I've heard the prices are absolutely astronomical, the
it's-
highest they've ever been. He's like, you see $1 million cars everywhere on the road, and it's just like, it's a free for all.
Yep.
You know, I asked Matt Belinsky, who's been on the pod, who's known to have some edgy
Yeah.
thoughts on social media, but I also think he's really smart and from an analytical standpoint. So, like, let's take away, you know, I was just like, what's the chess game going on here? Because he likes to talk about this stuff. He basically says, look, Iran got what they wanted, which is Saudi-Israel deal's done. He's like, I don't think it's World War III. I think leaders like to be in power, so they're not going to push it too far. And hopefully this conflict kind of subsides. It's never going to end, obviously. But the interest of the leadership is to stay in power. Like I said, don't get killed, right? And you push it too far, you get killed.
Yeah.
So his thought was like, look, obviously everything's terrible, but he doesn't believe it's going to like push to that next level. That's his thought. And he's a Jewish guy, just for reference.
I mean, I think it could get wild if Hezbollah from the north opens up another front, because the difference is they've been arming themselves, and, you know, with all the chaos that was happening in Syria, it was a, you know, straight line from Iran to Lebanon, and Hezbollah's got, you know, thousands and thousands of these Katyusha rockets and other rockets. They can just overwhelm the Iron Dome. So I think this is why the U.S. is sending these aircraft carrier groups
Just to
there.
send a message.
Yeah, like, don't fuck around.
Yeah.
Like, don't mess with this. But the other thing I think that could set it off is if the invasion of Gaza, which I think is going to happen. I think Israelis are now saying, we got to go in and just take out Hamas once and for all. If that gets very bad, right, where we're seeing horrifying scenes. I mean, it's already pretty bad, but this is just the airstrikes. This is the first wave. If that gets bad, I mean, I think you could have people out in the streets in other Muslim countries, and then their leaders are like, shit, you know, they might be turning against us.
Yeah.
Especially the ones that are more sensitive and don't have that kind of repressive control, like in Turkey. And, you know, initially you saw Erdogan was saying, guys, calm it down, calm it down. Now he's more like, all right, yo, chill out, chill out. This is getting pretty bad to the Israeli side. And there has been, you know, interactions before whenever tensions flare up or Turkey gets involved. And that puts the U.S. in a very awkward spot because Turkey's a NATO country and Israel's our friend. You got two friends that might start flinging stuff at each other and getting very aggressive towards one another. So I think that could be a problem. Either something happens from the north, or something causes public opinion to be enraged so much in the Middle East that the guys have to do something. And now the question is, will Israel listen to other Arab leaders? And
because they have no incentive at this point.
Exactly.
Given what happened, they're like, why should I listen to anybody? Fuck all of you.
Exactly. But there's also the internal discussion. So when you were talking about the whole nuanced point of view and the nuanced discussion, if you read the American press versus the actual Israeli press, the Israeli press right now is very nuanced. I mean, there's a lot of like anger, let's say on the center left, if you read like Haaretz and these type of newspapers, about how did this happen?
Yeah.
I mean, Israel is known as Surveillance Inc., right? They're the guys who built Pegasus and all this type of...
Yeah, the best cybersecurity companies are at it.
Exactly. And it's like some guys on gliders got across. How the hell did that happen? I mean, you'd think if gliders can get through, then, some Iranian jets or, other stuff could get through, right? So I think there is some discussion around that. There's a lot of political divisions in Israel as well, where, with Netanyahu, when he was trying to make all the judicial reforms, every Saturday he had hundreds of thousands of people out in the streets. There's also some very high-level people right now that are, I guess, ex-government that are saying, Netanyahu is not the leader we need right now. We need someone else, because Israeli society basically has shifted very much to the right, at least in the leadership. And Netanyahu is almost like the moderate of his whole cabinet. Like, he's got some really, really extreme people in his government. And, most of Israeli society, I think, does not agree with it, right? So there is a schism there. And this is, the stuff that's hard to play out, right? Like, which way does that go?
Yep.
Yeah. It's very intense. Go for it.
Unless you guys had a big one. There was something that you mentioned before I think either before we started recording or in your intro, where you were talking about like geographically why this is so tough, and geographically why the US is so lucky, and why a place like this may just geographically be bound to forever conflict. Right.
So yeah, that's the book I brought for you. It's called Prisoners of Geography. Was recommended by a friend, and it goes into a lot more detail. It's much more eloquent than what I can say. But so let's talk about the U.S. The advantages: you have a massive ocean on both sides, Pacific, Atlantic, which is protecting you. Friendly neighbors to the north, friendly neighbors to the south. I mean, Mexico is a bit iffy because it seems to be lurching towards a narco state, but it's not a major threat to the U.S. But I think the biggest thing is the arable land, the amount of crops you can grow, the water supply, and also then the river network. The network of rivers that you have in North America, it's like a superhighway for transporting goods. So transportation of goods, the costs per mile in the US is way ahead of anybody else. And, given that the Americans basically had this huge opportunity because of geography that's been favorable. So, the country expanded and grew, and then it's just become a powerhouse, right? You've got oil, you've got every resource. I think I read somewhere the only thing that doesn't grow in the US is tea. And maybe that does grow here, right?
Yeah.
So you've got everything here. The problem in Israel-Palestine is you're talking about a tiny sliver of land, no water. And for the Israelis, they've had a history of being invaded from the north, from Syria. You've had invasions by Egypt in the 67 war, the 48 war, the 73 war. So they don't have what they call strategic depth, right? They can't retreat and then regroup and do a counter push like what's happening in Ukraine and stuff like that. So they need to have, defensive that are very strong, at their frontier. And because of that, they can't really give away land, right? So a lot of the discussion has been about the two-state solution, which, I personally think would be good, but I don't see it happening because if the Israelis give up Gaza and the West Bank, they basically have borders that are inside their country because of the way it's shaped, right? So I think if any attack does come in the future, they got nowhere to retreat. So it's very hard to defend that land. So I think this is why they're like, okay, we got to start building settlements. We got to push our frontier out into what is now, Palestine, right? And this is why I don't have hope. I mean, I don't see the things getting better because of also the opinion on both sides has become so stiffened, and because of just the constant cycle of violence that's been happening. I mean, there was a lot of hope in the 90s, right? In early 2000s.
They got close, right?
Yeah, they got close, but the problem is also there's division within the Palestinians. So in the West Bank, you've got Fatah or the PLO. Over here, you have Hamas. They fought a war against each other.
Right.
Fatah is seen as ineffective and corrupt, and Hamas is fucking crazy. So you've got that problem. And then on the Israeli side, they sort of said, okay, we pulled out in 2005 from Gaza. We built a wall around it. And I guess, we'll kick the can down the road and we'll see, someone else will deal with it. But the problem is you've got that many people, surrounded from all sides. And Egypt has also closed the border, right?
Yeah.
It's not like Egypt's helping
No,
them.
right now Egypt's not letting Palestinians
No,
come
they're
in.
not going
They're
to.
like, fuck no, don't come here.
Yeah.
They don't want their problem in their backyard.
No.
There's a history because in Jordan, when the 67 war happened, I believe, a lot of the Palestinian refugees that left what the UN had said was Palestine went to Jordan. And then after a while, they rose up against the royal family of Jordan and tried to do a coup and take over Jordan. So they're like,
Yeah.
well, fuck you. You're not allowed here.
Yeah.
When Saddam invaded Kuwait, a lot of Palestinians joined Saddam and the Iraqi army and turned on the Kuwaitis. So I think the Egyptians and other Arab countries are like, yeah, we don't want you here either. But it's a very useful tool because anytime there's some kind of problem, they can deflect and don't look at me and my corruption. Look what Israelis are doing to the Palestinians. So it's been a very useful tool for these governments to stay in power by deflecting blame. India, Pakistan, same thing. Yeah, don't look at us. Look at what the other guy's doing, right?
Yeah.
It's an old trick. So I don't see, that happening, right? I don't see Egypt opening up the border and helping because, Egypt and Israel have a peace treaty. I mean, they went to war and then they basically hashed it out. And the Muslim Brotherhood and, the cousins of Hamas assassinated Anwar Sadat because of that deal. But the deal has held. Israel gave back the Sinai and Israeli tourists go to Egypt. And, I don't know if you saw that after all this stuff happened, some Israeli tourists were killed in Egypt.
Yeah.
But
horrific.
Yeah, I mean, Israelis have friendships with the Egyptians, with the Jordanians that work well together. Lebanon, it's a bit too unstable to have because who in Lebanon are you going to make a deal with? There's so many factions.
Yeah.
And the Lebanese government really isn't in control. It's Hezbollah or Iran that's in control. So I think that's why that border region has not been friendly. And Syria has just been a civil war and stuff, which I think is to Israel's benefit. If you have an enemy on your border that's busy fighting itself, it's good for you, right?
Wow.
So,
wow, what a history lesson.
Yeah, that's
It's
fantastic.
amazing. You explain that stuff really well. And I think just like the fact that there's so much going on in such a small area is just, I think we all want to be optimistic and we all want to think that it could be solved. It just seems so incredibly difficult. And when you're talking about religion and when you're talking about thousands of years and you're talking about
right. But what's interesting is this recent conflict, I would say mostly started after 1948. So Jews and Muslims have always lived well together, right? I mean, obviously there's conflict, but it wasn't the main reason for the conflict. I think 48 to now is when things really started getting worse and worse progressively.
So there's a book, I'm sure you've read it, given how well read you are. The Accidental Superpower by Peter Zeihan.
Yeah.
We call him Zohan because he's calling China's dead in 10 years. But that book is one of the few books I've read start to finish as an adult. And they talk about how America is geographically always going to be in power because of everything you described.
Yeah.
That it's so hard to penetrate.
Oh, yeah. No, the problem in the U.S. is internal fighting. Right?
Yeah.
This is what could bring it down. But I mean, as
TikTok, bring it down.
Let me ask you a question. You've lived all over the world.
Yep.
How good is America?
Oh, it's amazing. Is there 3 million people trying to sneak into China right now?
No, exactly.
Nobody's going to China.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm from Canada and, even up there, things have gone worse. It's gone, under Trudeau, things have just gone off the bit. I mean, they're trying to regulate podcasts. So you guys would be government censored and regulated up in Canada, which COVID, I think, broke a lot of people. But no, I mean, people shit on the US and then people say it's divided. I think 90% of the people here in this country are, they all agree on the same things. And there's some, political differences. But I think most of the stuff people agree on, I think in
IRL, we are all very similar.
Oh, yeah.
The problem is when you go home and you log on to the old Instagram.
It's all social media, yeah.
and you're a different person.
That's
there are people I am friends with in real life that very good friends. And then I go home and I go see I'm like, that was the same person I just had dinner with? They're a different human being.
Yeah, social media makes life in America look so much worse than it is. And I have a strong theory it's intentionally done so by foreign apps like TikTok.
Well, I've used TikTok in the Middle East. I've used it in Argentina, Chile, Brazil, recently Uruguay, Canada, and Mexico. And it's very interesting to see what type of stuff shows up in my algorithm depending which country I'm in. So in the Middle East, it's a lot of stuff about cars. That's all it was, is cars.
They're not letting all the girls and all that stuff pop in there. Yeah.
Get down to South America, because I was there after I left Qatar waiting for my visa here. and it's all about the greatness of China. Here's how China used to make
Shocking.
the gunpowder back in the day, and this and
We're
that.
such a joke. Our lawmakers are such a freaking joke.
Yeah.
It's staring at our face and eating our society day by day by day.
Yep.
The problem is you would have people marching in the streets if you banned it.
They know that now, China.
And unleash Zuck. Like, what
Yeah.
I know.
that doesn't make any sense. That
Yeah.
Can I just
they'll
ask
happily
you
let China mess around.
what is your algorithm here?
Here it's because let's see, it's a lot more
Tits
like
and war.
Basically.
Tits
I
and
mean,
arguing, right?
it's a lot of like dance videos and stuff, which I'm not even into, but a lot of stupidity, right? It's not
Yeah,
like what
It's
I
so
saw in
stupid.
South America.
I was just curious
It's
how
like-
you would label, like, okay, here it's pro-China, there it's cars and fancy
It's
things
prank
in
videos
America.
and dancing
The
videos.
dumbing of America. That's what
Oh, yeah,
TikTok's doing.
it seems like it's like, oh, look at this. And a lot of like internal division, like, this is what this libtard said. This is what this transgender, this is what the far right is saying.
Yeah.
I'm like, dude, like, yeah, when I walk, I mean, granted, we're in LA. I don't think there's a lot of like far right people walking around, but everybody I meet is fine. I go to Texas for work and everyone's super
I'm saying
nice.
I'm in the middle of the country all the time. I've never had any issue anywhere.
Yeah.
True. I mean, another, let's say, way to see it is how many of the top CEOs in this country are, immigrants or sons of immigrants. I mean, people say that, racism is so horrible, but things have improved. I mean, Barack Obama was president. I know a lot of people say, oh, you don't get it. There's racism. I don't think it's, as bad as it used to be, but I think there's a certain subsect of people that benefit from making it seem like there's a lot of racism and they are sort of, diversity and inclusion warriors or something. I don't know. It seems like there's something there that's got some kind of economic benefit because it doesn't seem like it's really that bad.
Yeah, I think I would encourage anyone who thinks America is the most racist place, go to China, go to the Middle East, go to India, go to these places.
Yeah, you'll see what racism real quick.
Yeah, I'm gonna. I'd love to show you what real racism looks like.
I mean,
you won't even be allowed in the fucking building.
Another way to look at it is, they say America's divided. I mean, I used to live in Qatar, which was really divided. It's like expats and locals, different pay scales, different, all kinds of rules and stuff at the workforce, the workplace, right? I mean, it's not like people are fighting each other. I mean, expats know we go there, we make money, it's tax-free, safety and all that. But it's an actual society that's structured to be divided. America's not divided. Like
No.
it's
Yeah, there's
very
a
different.
story I have from Istanbul. We went. There was a group of 5 of us. 2 are black, and the bartender at the highest end place, the one that got shot up, sadly.
Ruby?
No, the
Reina.
Reina.
Yep.
So it's the nicest bar in the country. They would not even look at them to serve them in an empty bar. We had to order their drinks.
And that's in Istanbul.
And that's the equivalent of like you going to one of the nicest places here and they just be like, we're not serving you.
Yeah, that's like walking into Delight. I'm like, nah, not happening for you.
Well, that
went
could
to,
happen, no matter what your race is.
Well, no, I'm just saying at the bar. Once you're inside,
I'm
you
kidding.
may not get in, but
Yeah, once you're in, you're good. Well, I was in Seoul, South Korea with a friend, Arab guy, and he was dating a Korean girl. And I was on the subway with him, and all the Korean dudes were just staring at him, like giving him daggers. We tried to get into a club, and they said, nope, there's another club across the street that lets in foreigners, but you can't get in here. And it's owned by the same people.
Wow.
And there was like a sign, no Americans, no non-Koreans, like on the door. So
I gotta be honest,
America's not as bad as it thinks.
I obviously grew up, in the U.S., grew up in Ohio, where I think that some people would say or think might be a little behind other places, New York and L.A. on like racial things. I didn't really notice much. But when we were in Stockholm, seeing the way that our friend was treated, our black friend in Stockholm, Sweden, was treated at clubs was like shocking to me. Like it felt like, whoa, like that's, because we would all go into a nightclub and then they would say no to him, or we would all be doing something and they would come grab him. He would be in trouble. He would get kicked out. It was just,
And we were
so
spending
overt.
money.
Yeah. And I just
a
have
shitload
to,
of money.
like, I think the thing for me was like, that was the first time I had ever witnessed like that blatant, maybe
can't
some
leave
people,
out. You can't leave out the Nazi parade you guys caught in the middle of Sweden.
that also happened.
It was a
But
neo-Nazi
even I'll be honest
parade.
with you, even that would be like, okay, maybe they just have the right to their opinion in Sweden. But to see a whole group of people walk into a venue and one person get stopped, I've never witnessed in America that type of racism.
Yeah.
But I think the message here, especially from like you guys who have traveled a lot, and D, you've been traveling lately around the country, like it's just not what it seems on social media. And that's a bummer. I think once again, young people they're sitting in their bedrooms right now, getting their opinion formed of what the rest of the country's like and what the world's like, and it's getting formed very negatively. And even me coming from a small town, like maybe you don't leave your town, maybe you don't leave because you just think everyone's racist out there, and that's just a shame.
Yeah, like the Chicago BLM chapter posting like crazy pro-Palestine stuff is not helping the local Black community in any stretch of the imagination.
Right. Yeah, what do they do?
It's just they literally are posting like memes and cartoons that are pro-Palestine.
I think we can look it up just to make sure, but they posted the Palestine flag saying pro-Palestine, but with the paraglider.
Yeah.
It's not a good look.
That you're posting a terrorist.
Yeah, literally. And I think like it's screwing with people's minds what's right and wrong, and creating like and the thing is like the thing that pisses me off even about the Hamas leader, he's telling everyone from his cushy fucking Qatari apartment.
Of course, because that's how he has to control the
and
poor.
he tells them to go die.
Yeah, he's not doing it himself.
He's not going to go die. Okay, cool. Where are you at?
I don't know if he's in Qatar or
yourself?
Istanbul, but he's in one of those. But yeah, he's not there.
Yeah, and that's my point, is that like he's in some hotbed, relaxed, chilling, and he's telling all these people to go kill themselves. And there's some people are going to go do it.
Yeah, but the thing is, these type of people benefit when there's chaos. If there's peace and prosperity, why would anyone listen to this guy?
Yeah.
Right? If you're like some,
he's got the most attention he's probably ever had.
Exactly. So it's
horrible.
Yeah.
All right.
Well, I mean, that was incredible as far as, we were all talking before and we're like, hey, after that episode on Sunday, we're like, we just don't think we should really talk about this too extensively anymore because it's so detailed and there's so much we don't know. And it's so easy to say the wrong thing. And everyone's so polarized on social media. But that was really great as far as just a better rundown of kind of what's happening. And, we can kind of guess all day long, but you explain it really well. And that was really great.
Yeah, I mean, I just scratched the surface. I mean, there's, religious layers, economic layers. It goes.
Yeah, but I think the thing is like we are sitting in America, we're watching what's horrifically happening, and we don't understand really what's going on. And so it's good to get perspective, and that's why I'm talking to all of my friends and asking them their opinions, their views, and just to get an understanding, because I want to be empathetic to like the situation.
But that's just another thing that shows people that think the U.S. is horrible. It's like, there's no chaos like that, right? I mean, it's safe. Things are calm. It's, I think that's the problem right now is a lot of people have lost perspective here. It seems like, from the outside, you just feel like everyone in America is down on the country and stuff. But coming here as a foreigner, it's like, wow, this place is amazing.
Yeah. And by
especially
the way,
LA.
Sleepy Joe with a great speech.
Great speech.
Very
What do
good
you do?
speech.
Is very presidential. Is yesterday.
And today, I think. Or
I didn't see today's speech. I saw the one yesterday.
But yeah, I encourage people to go see the clip. It was commanding. It was probably his best speech I've seen him.
Since he got elected,
President.
yeah.
But how do you think he's going to play this? Because there's obviously an election coming. He can't be seen to be less soft than the Republicans, right?
Yeah, he has to.
No, he's
Look,
going
I
to be
think-
firm. He has to be very firm here.
So then what do the Republicans do? They go even more to the right, or do they shift to the center?
It may be a unified moment just up until 3 months before the election.
Yeah,
You know what I
then
mean?
they'll start.
Yeah, then they'll find their ways to find their
They're going to
differences.
see what Hunter's up to.
Yeah.
They'll start.
Yeah.
Do you guys think he's actually running?
Don't know. There's so many theories.
Yeah, so we'll have to
I
see.
think
but-
Newsom's coming in last minute. You can
Seems
see
like
him.
because
He's showing
doing
up
all
to
these interviews
debates.
and stuff.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he's prepping.
Yeah.
You're not going to those debates doing interviews unless
Yeah.
there's
Why
a
would you want that
switcheroo
extra
about to
work?
happen. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, so we'll see.
All right. So great episode. And that was just great. That's something that is cool about this podcast and having a podcast and stuff like that people listen to, is being able to, we've never been ones to like jump into the polarization and, be involved in all of that, but just explaining what's going on better and giving some more insight on it is really valuable, because I think a lot of people don't have a friend like you or someone like you that can explain these type of things.
Yeah.
Thank you for that.
absolutely.
All right, let's end it off with some winners, losers, and content. D, who's the biggest winner for the last week?
I'm going with Jada Pinkett Smith.
A winner?
She's the winner?
She's
What'd
the
she
winner
do?
because she did an interview yesterday, says Will Smith and her and him have been separated for 7 years.
She really likes to put their personal life just out in the open.
I mean,
know.
she
7 years. Why is he
owns
smacking
this
people
bitch.
for her then?
Yeah, why is he smacking?
That's even funnier. It's like she's probably like, "Why are you smacking?" You're like, "We're not even married.
Yeah.
We're not even married."
This
She's
guy put his
unbelievable.
career on the line for someone he's separated with?
I have a whole new respect for her. She's a boss. I love it.
What do you love about her?
Because it's
She's
Will
just so-
Smith. It's not
Yeah.
like just some random schmo like Nicki Minaj's husband. It's Will Smith is the other partner in this relationship.
Man, he's just more than broken.
What broke Will Smith? Will Smith, this guy was like the king of
worshipped
the
him.
world.
I think it was
he
her.
pretty much controlled every 90s baby.
Yeah.
He was the
I
god.
think that for years the CIA has been trying to, figure out mind control. I think they need to work with Jada Pinkett Smith.
I mean, she might have to run the CIA.
I'm just saying.
She has
could
people
have
she's not even married
soldiers.
to slapping people for no reason.
Yeah.
She could, think about all
One
the
of the
movies.
most-
Like, what if you could, get a Manchurian Candidate? What if you could? That's what she did to Will Smith.
Yeah.
No, she took one of the biggest, most famous people of the last
Ever.
25 years.
Yeah, and he just does her bidding like a robot. Slap that man.
Yeah.
That wasn't funny.
Yeah. Next.
Yeah, that's good. You're right.
Oh,
You know
man.
what? That's
Chris
why I like
Rock
the
needs
new
to do another special.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Nabil, I don't know if you have a winner. Do you have a winner? I don't want to throw you on the spot.
Winner? No, I got content, but no winner.
Okay, we'll get you the content on and winner.
In light of chaos in the world right now, the NFL orbit continues to win. Roger Goodell just signed a 3-year extension that's averaging $64 million. His career earnings will be at $700 million after this contract concludes,
Wow.
and $700 million to run the NFL. Pretty amazing.
Definitely worth it.
Of course,
He's adding a lot of
franchise values have all gone up
Yep.
by multiples. He's probably created, whether 30 or 32 teams. 32 teams. Each franchise probably has gone up $3 billion under his watch.
Yeah. And he's got Taylor Swift.
And he's got Taylor Swift.
Give him. I mean, they are milking that. If she's not getting any money, that is the biggest free marketing
up.
that
Yeah.
anyone has received. I mean, their Instagram bio is talking about her. Their whatever. I mean, I can only imagine they're seeing obviously merch sales go up, at least for Kansas City, and viewership has to be up on those games.
And you're getting a new audience. So even if the Taylor audience that's new to football,
Yeah.
at least 5% stick around
Yeah.
once she's gone?
Yeah.
I mean,
Do you think if you're Taylor's agent, you're calling them and you're like, guys, fucking either cool it or we need 100 million?
Yeah, I don't know.
This is crazy. My winner is Birkenstock. We didn't hear anything about IPOs for quite a while. And, there's been a couple trying to creep out. And, the old legend, Birkenstock, IPO'd. Great news.
So at least they got out. Stock's down on the opening. But getting out's half the battle. So
Are they down? How bad are they down?
Doing
about
10% on the first day.
13%. Not good.
Okay, not
That's pretty
great.
bad.
It's not great for the sandals, and it's not great for the
Typically-
IPO market.
That banker needs to be fired.
Yeah. Typically, the way IPOs work is you get the first day, boom.
And then
wait
it
3
falls
months,
apart.
then it
Yeah.
crashes.
Yeah,
It's supposed to crash in 3 to 6 months, not the first
when the
day.
lockup ends.
Yeah,
That's a bad
there's
sign.
little-
It's
I
such a
don't know
great
if
company too.
Yeah,
I saw the
hey.
average person who owns owns Birkenstock owns 4 pairs. It's kind of crazy. Great stuff.
Really?
What?
The average Birkenstock consumer owns 4 pairs.
Yeah, I mean, my wife has 6.
Is there any
Easy.
difference in them? It's just that
Well,
one
there's
model,
different.
no?
There are different materials.
Okay.
So there's
That's what's
injection mold.
crazy, though.
There's
How big they
There's
are.
a-
Pretty much off of one silhouette.
There's a
Yeah.
shop on 3rd Street right by Cedar Sinai. Expensive rent.
Yeah.
All they do is Birkenstock repair.
yeah. That's how big the industry is.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Okay, losers. D, who's your loser?
My loser of all time is Hamas. I don't
Yeah.
think there's any question to me. They're the worst group of people in our modern times of what occurred. And yeah, That's it.
That's fair. Anand?
My loser is the mouse. They've
Oh, yeah, the mouse
attracted
is
the
getting
interest
creamed.
of an activist investor, Nelson
I read
Peltz,
about that.
the Tryon Fund. The last thing the mouse needs is these hedge fund billionaires that are demanding board seats. They basically end up running your business.
Well,
you have
they're
to
gonna-
fire everyone.
They're gonna tell Mickey to pack it and get the fuck out of here. You
They only got
big-eared
room for
fuck.
Minnie. They got a job for
This is
Minnie,
a
but
women's
Mickey's
market.
out.
Get out of here, you dork.
So-
Goofy? Why do we want somebody named Goofy? You get out of
Goofy's
here
out.
too. Get
Yeah.
the fuck out of here.
We've talked
Mickey's
about
out.
this so many times. Like Bob Iger can't be happy he came back.
No. I think
This
in
is now
hindsight-
hell. This is like
Yeah.
when you have an activist investor involved, like
Yep.
one of the most famous ever. He's gonna make Bob Iger's life hell.
In hindsight, he timed his exit perfectly, and he
didn't
just
need to come back.
yeah, he would have soared off, man.
Yeah, now he
All
has
right.
to stay out of ego, right?
Well,
Yeah.
now you got to try to turn. If you leave now, you're
Bailing on the ship.
bailing on the ship. All right, well, that's a rough one. Losers. Yeah, I mean, I guess I'll say there's a million things that are losers this week. I think mine is probably social media. I think just for everything we were talking about, social media is like this tool that in theory could be so great. Like it connects the world, your voices are heard, information, more empathy. And like we just use it to fucking argue with each other
Yep.
about the wildest shit. And everyone's got to have an opinion and everyone's got to like, I don't know, man. It just feels like such a great tool that we have currently sort of
We blew it.
botched. You know, maybe
Yeah,
we'll
we
figure
blew
it
it.
out in the future. But anyway,
Yeah.
I'll pick that one to be more specific. Content.
My content is I started watching last night the David Beckham documentary
yeah.
on Netflix. Unbelievable.
Really?
Unbelievable. Like
Everyone said that.
it's just like it's an incredible story.
Wow.
And it's like it's basically him and his wife narrating from the time and his parents are in it. Like it's so good. It's so good.
I'll watch it. I would
that
normally
one
write
clip.
that off.
I would yeah, because like I don't even, like I
He's
don't
like
even,
a male model to me.
Yeah, it's so much more than that. It's so interesting and just like the attention, the pressure, what he accomplished, and then like, his family life. I love him now. I never watched him play soccer, but I love
Yeah, I
David
never
Beckham.
have.
Everyone-
Yeah.
I haven't really watched him either, but someone told me from the Netflix show that it was identified he was a prodigy like really early. Is that
Yeah,
true?
yeah,
So that's a lot of pressure.
yeah.
Yeah,
I saw that one
admittedly-
clip where he kept hammering Victoria about the car they had when she was growing up. It was some comedy gold right
Yeah,
there.
yeah. It's really good content. It's incredible. It's highly recommended.
Yeah, I admittedly
You
don't
got
give him credit.
Content. I listened to, I'm a huge podcast fan, and
Yeah.
I always listen to you guys religiously. And a great episode that I came across, a new podcast I hadn't heard before, is Sean Ryan. I think he's an ex-Navy SEAL, but he had Eric Prince, the Blackwater guy, on.
Oh
Oh
god.
my god.
The two episodes. So my impression of him is, I think probably what you guys thinking.
Mercenary.
Mercenary psycho. But this guy is like super well read, dropping like book after book, and it's me just adding them to my Amazon list. Very, very smart guy. Like to the point where it's like, wow, had a completely different point of view on the guy until I listened to the podcast. 2 parts talking about geopolitics, how the world's going on, what China is doing. A lot of scary stuff on how they're doing uneconomical things that makes you believe they're preparing for a major conflict. So I'm like a big geopolitics nerd on that stuff. So that was
He's one of the guys. If you're one of these unstable leaders,
oh yeah,
to
you
help
call
make
him-
sure you call him to make sure
Yeah,
you don't
yeah,
get
yeah.
killed.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, that's a great recommendation. Anand?
The Taylor Swift premiere is this week.
Oh,
The
wow.
movie based off the concert,
Are you going to see
and
it?
we haven't booked tickets, and I'm sure it's sold out because I think it's going to do like 150 million in the first weekend. And the Grove is shutting down tomorrow night for the official premiere. So
Wow.
they're
Is Taylor supposed to show up?
So 2,200 people are going to be allowed at the Grove. I'm
So
sure
like first come, first serve.
No, they have some sort of lottery
Raffle.
raffle. And TMZ has reported that Taylor Swift is supposed to attend. and they give the caveat if security permits. I think the area surrounding the Grove, because now it's been announced that she's supposed to be there,
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
it's going to be just chaos. They're going to shut down all the streets.
Yeah.
You should go
that
check
means
it out.
we can't go to dinner there Friday night.
Yeah.
Well, we
No,
normally
you're
do-
fine.
What?
It's tomorrow.
Oh, it's not Friday. It's Thursday.
Yeah. yeah.
Okay.
I feel
Friday,
like
you
somebody-
can go to dinner.
Ironically,
to
we
go
have
check
soccer
it out.
practice across the street.
Okay, you could be
5:30.
boots on the ground.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can be boots on
Soccer
the ground.
practice might be canceled.
Yeah. You might play with some, 14-year-old girls waiting for Taylor to show up. Little pickup game.
Amazing.
Okay, love it. Content. Well, I mean, I guess I'll just go pure bullshit content. I mean, this weekend is the Logan Paul, Dylan Dennis fight.
Oh, that's finally here?
Yeah, that's Saturday with all the hype of Dylan Dennis, talking shit about Logan Paul's fiance. Unfortunately, as much as I'd like to be above this type of content. I just can't help it. Saturday night rolls around. I'll watch it. I'm going to buy it. So we'll see. It's just more of the circus act of all these. There's also KSI and Tommy Fury. So the other storyline is that Tommy Fury beat Jake Paul. Jake Paul has this argument with KSI over who's the best influencer boxer. And so if KSI beats Tommy Fury, he's the better.
Oh my
influencer
God.
This
boxer.
is China winning.
Yeah,
This is
China got yeah.
Ah, shit, they got me.
What's your
they-
prediction on the Logan Dylan? He has to kill him. Otherwise, I feel like
yeah.
Logan's career is a wrap.
Definitely. I don't see how he doesn't. He's just too big and, roided up or whatever he's doing. I don't see how he loses. But we'll see. I mean, look, unfortunately, when it comes to two people fighting, I'll watch almost any two people fight. And, I'm hooked. So maybe I'll give you guys the recap on Sunday if you don't catch it.
Amazing.
There it is. All
One
right.
shout out.
Shut up. Yep.
From John to his wife, Melissa. Just wanted to wish my day one, Melissa, a happy 40th birthday. We've been married for 15 years, and she's an amazing teacher, mom, and wife. She's too humble to brag about her accolades, including Teacher of the Year,
Wow.
and chosen to be on The Ellen Show for her teaching accomplishments. And Ellen sent us to the Super Bowl in Tampa. Happy birthday, Melissa. Love you.
Oh,
Wow.
Wow. Happy
I know a
birthday.
John Melissa husband-wife couple.
Not them.
Not them.
How are they doing? Do they have a healthy relationship?
Thriving.
Okay. It's good for the John and Melissas. We won't send you to the Super Bowl, but we'll give you a free shout out. We're not Ellen. Good stuff. All right. Hell of an episode. Yeah, that was great.
Yeah. Thank you, Nabil.
Thank
No
you.
problem.
Thank you,
Anytime.
Nabil. Thanks for the rundown. Everyone have a great rest of your week. We'll see you Sunday.